Okay, here we go. Good afternoon, America. Welcome once again to the Meat and Potato Show, Conservative Talk and Awesome Rock. I am your host, Christopher Mader, and my guest today is calling in from Michigan, Northern Michigan. Her name is Danette Kingstad, and Danette has been the victim of CPS injustice since the birth of her children, and even before that. Her childhood alone was not exactly stellar and is not an example of how you're supposed to raise children, and we're going to cover that just a little bit. I don't really want to concentrate too much on that. In fact, it turns out that her own mother, and I think her mother-in-law, Danette will clarify all that for me, were both instrumental in targeting her for an investigation. But after 19 failed attempts, by CPS, they were finally able to kidnap her children, and we're going to get into that story. You're going to hear that story today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Danette Kingstad from Michigan. Danette, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Christopher. I'm okay. I'm looking forward to this interview.
Thank you so much for calling into the show. I know things are very busy for you, and things are kind of tough for you right now, going on with CPS. But I do want to, not concentrate on your childhood too much, but suffice to say it wasn't a good one. But I do want to ask you if your family at the time when you were a child was involved with CPS back then. And if so, I'm wondering if this was one of the many reasons they tightened their grip on you once you started having children. Because I know that once you're in the system, I mean, you're always in the system. Even if you were a child and something happened and CPS was involved when you were a child, now that you're an adult and you're having children of your own, you're in the system. It's what I called in my blog at-risk children at the time, now adults having children of their own. So CPS just lumps them in as well at-risk children. So give us your opinion on that. And begin the story of how CPS showed up the day that you yourself were in the delivery room. Go ahead.
Well, actually, Christopher, my mother is the baby of 7 of a very strong pillar of the community, once upon a time in Pontiac, that moved to Highland in Michigan. So no, there was no CPS interactions. I wasn't involved with that. My aunts, I have 5 aunts, and one of them asked me why CPS was never involved, and I guess the only answer I could give her was, why didn't you involve them? I haven't talked to her since.
Right.
So I guess that was kind of a guilty thing for her. Why didn't she ever interact? Because I went through a lot of hell as a kid, too. But no, I wasn't an at-risk kid. Although during this last and ongoing still situation, I have gotten personal letters from the juvenile post-probation officer that my children are now involved with since the CPS started.
Sure.
Where they have sat in on mistrials and how I've gotten personal letters how they're prejudiced against me now based on that mistrial and the information involved, because I got to hear the entire the petition.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it was mistrial was because the petition was improperly written.
That doesn't surprise me. Keep going. Go ahead.
Okay, well, during that jury trial, well, obviously it's common sense that your witnesses don't go into the jury selection.
Mm-hmm.
That's what caused part of the mistrial was mine and the prosecutor's witnesses were just nonchalantly hanging out, watching the jury selection and learning all about the details before the trial. That was step 1 to the trial.
Incredible. And so this is why the mistrial was called. Clarify that for me.
It was the actual mistrial was called because the petition was written wrong.
Right. Okay.
But not until after the witnesses were informed of what they were there to not hear.
This is unbelievable.
They're not allowed in the jury selection, and these guys were invited actually by the prosecutor. These were my witnesses, and they were the juvenile department because they were my biggest supporters, actually. They helped me get some help, and that's how CPS got involved at all. I reached out to the community for help because as a single mom, I had some rebellious teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's never been supportive. My mom had 2 no-contact orders on her for my kids.
Right.
But she's now the guardian. Both of them, one of them was violence. The other one was for interfering with my parenting. And it's by the same judge who took my kids and placed them with her. It's a huge, nasty little web. You would have to give me directions because I can go on and on and on in different directions on this if there's so many.
Well, that's interesting. And I'm wondering if this is the tangled web they weave. It gets to the point where even you don't even know. You don't even know what the hell's going on here at some point in time.
They confused the jury so severely that they didn't know how to call it.
Right.
That's what ended up in the end. Like I was accused of using drugs through all my pregnancies. My mother testified how I was drinking through my entire pregnancy with my last child. And coincidentally, his dad stuck a hatchet in his head. Because when I told him I was pregnant, I wouldn't let him beat me to kill the baby.
Oh, good God. He stuck
a hatchet in his head and told the police I did it. That was the day I found out I was pregnant with my last one. So he's got my toddler. So I've learned in Dale Corona County, at any rate, the more abuse I took, the more arrests I had. I've been arrested multiple times for other people hitting me. It's my fault to be abused in their opinion. I'm guilty because I was there, I guess. I feel differently about it. I'm 41 years old. I've survived many years of abuse. This is no exception, and it's ignorance to me. Because I think at 41 years old, I've learned enough about abuse that even their mobbing, they're not going to be that successful with me.
No, exactly. You've become savvy over these years, and now give us a timeline here. And I know you've been talking about the trial and the mistrial, but give us a timeline from when you became involved in your own research. And you told me in your email that you met a woman you felt sorry for. Now, was this before or after? Because the story you just told, and I just said it too, it's like you don't even know what the hell's going on. The jury doesn't know what the hell's going on. I'm actually a little bit confused here. Also, give us a timeline. Just give us a timeline. Was this before or after your children were born that all of this started with? Because I know you told a story in your email about, you were in the middle of delivery and a social worker walked in because you made some joke about, yes, I got high just before coming in here. It's like, leave me the hell alone. I'm in the middle of a contraction. And, all hell broke loose. So give us that timeline here.
I've never even, at that time, CPS was a non-existent thing to me.
Sure.
I mean, that was like, what's that? So at any rate, to me, that was like, are you an accountant of some sort? It's kind of dumb, naive. But my doctor, he was a very, very supportive man, and thank God, because I was 26. I wasn't young. I wasn't old. I just wasn't young. I was career-minded, and I had my life together, and I was with a man, and this was something. We were going to have a child. Well, we did. But the day she came out started a whole new thing for me and him. He wasn't abusive just yet either.
Right.
His mom, though, after that incident, he found a new tool. She never liked me, but she is the one who hooked me up with him.
Yeah, right, yeah.
She really liked me. I guess I was cute enough for her son, just not good enough for him.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
So once the baby came, no longer was I worthy, and so she decided that once CPS was around, apparently she was more familiar with him than I was. That became her regular tool choice.
Right, it's called the snitch network, and I wrote about this in my blog that this is a common tactic that people with an axe to grind, a revenge type thing, using CPS as a tool. I mean, that, in fact, CPS even invites that, don't they? That's what happened to you.
They encourage it to the point of telling people that we don't care what you think is abusive, call us, we'll decide.
That's essentially it, right? Yeah, the litmus test is it's a very low bar for them, and it's interesting. Yeah, when your children were first being born. A quick story here of my own situation is that my wife Rebecca and I, she's the chief financial officer for the Meat and Potato Show. She, when our daughter was born, everything was fine. We went to all the OBGYN, IU, he, she, it, we, they, whatever that group is called, that, you go to the doctor once a month and you get your ultrasound and your shots and everything else. Everything was going fine. Somewhere around month 6 or month 5, I forget exactly what it was. My truck broke down like a day or two before the appointment. We called the doctor. We say, "Hey, truck's broke down. Can we reschedule?" Blah blah blah. And I actually was able to talk to the doctor, not just the secretary or the head nurse. And he's like, "Let me look at the." He's like, "You know what? Don't worry about it." He says, "Last time she was here, everything was fine. She was fine. The baby's fine. It's like we're just gonna do another ultrasound. We just want to measure the baby. Is she feeling all right? Yeah, she's doing fine, Dad. She's still at work, and we're doing fine." It's like, "All right, you know what? Don't worry about it. Take care of your stuff. We'll schedule for next month. Same date, same time, same everything. He says, just show up and don't worry about it." Well, everything went fine. Obviously, we had the baby. Absolutely beautiful child. The next morning, we're sitting there. The doctor's like getting ready to discharge us and everything. In comes a social worker. Her only concern was, "Why did you miss that appointment?" And I'm like, what? I mean, I had forgotten about it. It's like, what are you talking about? "Oh, on such and such a date, you had an appointment and you missed it." And then the doctor comes in. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I was like, who the hell is this? And then once he found out, he's like, "You, get the hell out of here." It's like, "Get out of here." And she got up and she left. We never heard from that again. But you're right. You make a great point there. This is what they do. It's like, really, seriously? You're going to worry about a skipped appointment 5 months?
Honestly,
yeah, go ahead.
My children, my older two are back to back. My son is 364 days younger than my daughter. And
well, you didn't waste any time, did you, Danette?
Well, he was born the exact same Saturday the following year, and guess what? That same CPS worker showed up and she wanted to take my son.
Now, how old are your children now?
14 and 15 and 4.
All right, so what's the status? Where are they? Are you in contact? What's going on there?
My mom has decided she wanted to have a final blow abusing me because I refused for the last several years to let her beat on me anymore, so she started to resort to my children. And when I stopped letting them go visit Grandma, they started to run away because my children were being encouraged by the juvenile probation officers that I was speaking of and my mother to run away. So that deemed me the negligent parent. So my mother's now got my teenagers because she was assaulting them also. She had me arrested because she showed up at my door and assaulted me. So I got arrested in my home, in my pajamas, with my children there because my mother came to beat me up.
Now, you're a grown adult at this time. I mean,
Well, this was July 6th of 2012 when it all started, this last CPS case. And it's still ongoing. And there's more to it. It gets better and better every time.
Then keep going. I was going to say, keep going on this timeline. And again, I want to re-ask the question, what's the status of your children now? Where are they located? Who are they?
My daughter is in lockup at Wolverine somewhere in Michigan.
And how old is that daughter?
She's 15. On her 15th birthday, my mom tried to have her locked up in a mental hospital, falsely accusing her of cutting. And there was an emergency hearing to place her, but I guess they didn't count on that she wouldn't have any cut marks. So I actually called them on it and kept my daughter out of a mental hospital for a few months.
Now, why? Now, just hear me out.
She got on the back, but the CPS worker prosecutor and my mom got a really big pat on the back for a job well done for their effort.
Right. And now, they're the ones.
I almost got thrown in jail myself over it.
They're the ones causing the problems. They're the ones fomenting the problem, causing the problem. I'm sure your daughter was a perfectly fine daughter until she got into this situation, until she got into the network. Now that she's...
She was rebellious. I'm not going to deny that. She was, but otherwise, yes, mentally and physically perfectly healthy. They were all perfectly normal children. These these are kids I look at and go, come on, what can we do to fix this? We got to do something to work together.
Sure, right. But
So I got my kids and I involved in a home wraparound program through NEMSCA. That's the Northeast Michigan Community Services up here. It's family assistance resourcing. I had my children and I were in the counseling. I had my son, he was the youngest in his preschool class. At 3 years old was the top of his class. I was so proud of him. My daughter, my mother testified, raised my son, and she took care of my entire household while I sat in my room and got high and drunk. Now we all know that's not going to happen when you got 2-year-olds running around.
right, exactly, right.
My mom's version of it, it was completely and wholeheartedly supported by all of her supporters, the CPS, the prosecutor. In fact, I've got information here where the prosecutor says right here that she was convicted of 1 count of domestic violence. So during my trial, he reported verbally that he did not in fact convict her. It was dismissed. But I cannot get my hands on those transcripts. I did file 6 written requests for them. But those are the sole portion of the transcripts I cannot get my hands on.
No, you probably won't. And if you ever do get a copy of it, 90% of it will be redacted. I've gotten copies of it after the fact, and it's so redacted. It's a government document.
No, it's the transcript. They cannot redact a single word.
No, the transcript from the. Okay, I see what you're saying.
The transcript from the actual trial, I cannot get my hands on.
Right.
They refuse and deny. In fact, our Lewinberger is the court recorder. She told me, and I recorded her over the phone, telling me that I may not have those, that that's her personal property.
They're her personal property? No, these are public documents.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Freedom of Information Act. Yeah, but then again, yeah, you might have to file under the Freedom of Information Act, and of course that always turns into another
I didn't
night.
just file under the Freedom of Information Act. I put it in writing. I did a certified. I've gone through my attorney. He's got written requests also. He's my 3rd attorney, too, by the way.
Jesus.
My first attorney withdrew because I asked him to file a fraud upon the court dismissal due to the prosecutor manufacturing a story that he didn't convict my mother of domestic violence against my children and I. She assaulted my 5-month-old son and my 11-year-old daughter. My son wasn't at home at the time, but she physically assaulted both of them. She threw a car seat at my infant, and I had to literally use my body to reflect it.
Right.
And she chased, my mother's 400 and something pounds, but she chased my daughter to the inside corner of the top bunk of her bunk bed to where she couldn't reach her after she had gouged her twice on her arm grabbing for her. She used to drive around with a belt in the back of her car in case my son flicked his hair or spit.
And she'd flip out and yeah, she sounds psychotic. She's like completely nuts, isn't she?
Her whole family thinks so. She's the black sheep. She's the baby of 7, was born and raised in strict Catholic world there. And I lost my only sibling the day I got out of jail the 2nd time for contempt last summer. And I didn't get to go to his funeral because of my mother.
Right.
My children were there. I have no contact with my children. I objected to the judge depriving my children of their right to be heard in court in an ex parte communication in the hallway. So I went to jail for it for a month. My appeal notice states that I was freaking out and screaming in the courtroom. I personally reported it because by that time I had taken enough of their ignorance, and since Bob Bloomberg owned these public recordings and the public record, I started making my own.
Sure.
So yes, even court hearings have been recorded at this point.
That's amazing. How were you able to do that? I mean, you're searched. I mean, I was at court the other day. They finally made me take off my shoes. It's like, are you serious? It's like you can't even.
Well, up in this tiny little unpopulated area, we got like thousands and thousands of acres, but we don't have the people.
Right.
It's just a huge, vast national forest area. So it's,
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the
you can walk in your jeans and tennis shoes.
right. I'm on the East Coast here in Worcester, Massachusetts. So it's total urban area over here. So
Yeah, this is real small town USA, you can walk in your jeans and t-shirt, take off your ball cap, you're all right.
Amazing.
It is up here.
Okay, so you've got the 15-year-old who's in lockup, and who's the next one? Let's go.
That's just her first lockup. She walked her dog, and she was placed on probation for, gosh, you know, my kids have been to court 22 different times in the last year, and I'm not even sure what my daughter was placed on probation for. Oh, yeah, I forgot. My mother said she stole her Xanax and her own money. She had her money, my daughter's money, in the glove box with my mother's Xanax. And in November 7th of 2012, my son OD'd on them same bitter pills at my mother's.
Now, this is all after they were placed. Before this, your children would never have done this, or even entertained the thought. All of this has occurred after they've been placed by CPS. True?
Yes, with the exception of my son. My son has been bullied at school since second grade, and they put cameras on the school since then. But my son was being bullied severely in his sixth grade, and it was his first year in the new school. And my daughter, she was there too, because they do the, sixth through ninth.
Sure.
But there's these videos, but they were not admissible because the probation officer said that he did it. So the videos of the school refused, even under the Freedom of Information Act, to allow me access to the videos of my son being hit by another student. In fact, the bus driver on one of these occasions called me up and said, I will not kick your son off my bus. I cannot light him up. He was being bullied by these three boys. My son ended up suspended for 13 days from school and 8 off the bus over these three boys assaulting him, and he fought back.
Oh, God forbid he should fight back. Right, exactly. Now he's the bully.
I was deemed teaching my child how to be a victim for that. I had my son in wrestling, and it taught him a lot of good discipline. My son was very respectful, quiet, laid back, mellow. He really has to be physically pushed to react.
My daughter's the same way. My daughter is when she's at home, and when she's with her friends. I mean, she's just a typical teenage girl. But I have taught my children. I've taught them. You don't stand down. You don't. Somebody's in your face. You don't stand down. You defend your honor and you stand your ground and you defend yourself. You especially.
I taught my children it's okay to walk away. If they pursue you, is when you fight them back.
That's yeah. You let diplomacy. You work diplomacy until its very last. Till it's
I've
integrated.
taken a lot of hits in my life. It's disabled me. I don't want to do this to my children. I don't want them to learn that life.
Right, exactly, and I don't blame you. And here's the thing: is now you're being targeted as, oh, well, you're teaching your children violence. No, I'm teaching my children to be independent. I'm teaching my children to stand up for themselves.
It's experience that it's been negligent and abuse of me to remove my family from the abuse. That's negligent of me. Obviously, they have my priority abusers have my children. So
yeah, but they did this.
They want me to know that it was wrong of me to leave the abuse and take my children from it.
They're the ones that did this, though. They're the ones that placed the children back.
That's what I say. I took my children out of the situation just so the CPS could put them back in it. And now I have since lost my home. My best friend and one of my friends, acquaintances I lived with, when I lost my home, I lost my kids the same 2 days.
Right.
I put 6 applications in with DHS to get some assistance with my home taxes because my mom, like I said, she assaulted my children, and she was removed from our home that she and I owned together. And she was pretty scorned over that. For a long time, she called CPS 6 months later, and I was back in court once again because, according to her, my house was messy because I had all her stuff packed up in it.
Right, right. Yeah, we're
I was enough to pack her stuff and let her come and get it against the no contact order. So I ended up with court the next day.
Right. Yeah, we're in the middle of moving ourselves, and I've got like one large room.
It's not a clean process, and it is cluttery.
Right, it is, and I've got one room quite literally annexed off where we've pre-stored all the boxes and everything's packed up, and Yeah, and so I've elected. I'm supposed to meet with my lawyer and a social worker next on Monday, and I said no. Let's go to the library. They're like, why? I said because we're in the middle of moving, and you're right. They'll walk in and they'll see that and they'll write down in the report, house is a mess. They'll
Okay,
write.
now I do have something important that has been the very initial start of every single investigation, except for two.
That's been in it.
Something very important is they show up with a police officer to my door with their petition. And they ask to come in my home, and my first question is do you have a warrant?
We don't need a stinking warrant.
And that's what they say. I don't need a warrant. And the officer will place his hand on his gun, and I will look at him dead in the eye and ask him if he's willing to lose his job for entering my home without one. You know what the typical response has been all these years until this last time? No, ma'am. And they'll walk away and leave that worker with their chin hitting the floor.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
that time,
It's called conspiracy. Here in Massachusetts, there is a law. There actually is a law. It's gone through the Massachusetts Supreme Court in that, you know, if a situation like that arises and a police officer does do something like that, enters your house illegally or does that through a CPS worker,
only one had the balls to do it.
right, you have to actually say to the police officer those statements that you just made, and the police officer most
He tried
times,
to shoot me, put a gun in my face.
yeah, they will most likely back down. And you also need to say to the other officers, if there's any other officers there, you have to point to them and say, and you will all be charged with conspiracy because you are all complicit in this. There's a statement.
I stopped using the word conspiracy and moved on to the RICO. Actually, that seemed to be a lot more effective.
Excellent. In fact, send me some of that stuff in an email, some of that information there. That I would really like to hear that. Let's keep moving on, though. You still have other children. You've got a 4-year-old, you said. Let's cover this now a little bit. What's his or her current status? What's going on with that?
He is living down in Grand Blanc with his great aunt and his dad. Like I said, his dad stuck a hatchet in his head the day I told him I was pregnant, and I went to jail that day for it. I had some probation and stuff over that too, fun. But his status with him, I had to fight to get him with him. He was in foster home for 4 months. The day they took him, they stuck him immediately in a foster home without even looking for family.
Right.
I had to fight them for 4 months to at least get him with his aunt.
Well, it's $4,000 from the federal government. I know in Massachusetts it's $4,000. You get $4,000 reimbursement.
Here, I believe it's 4,000 here too.
Right. Exactly.
But because she's a relative caregiver, that means she gets nothing. She's also a DHS worker in Livingston County. She's not a CPS worker. She's a DHS worker.
Right.
She makes too much money to receive assistance. I did, however, get in the mail the other day. They sent 2 notices to the address that I lived at with my second child. My son was born 14 years ago. The house no longer exists, but they sent me 2 notices to that to try to modify the child support. I get disability, so my children are on a set income from me. They each get $167 apiece.
Right.
So now Friday the court is attempting to double dip to get child support, also on top of child support. Now both dads are still in arrears with me. My older kids, their dad is $164,000 in arrears, so he doesn't have to pay anything. They're not pursuing him for any of the ward costs or the probation fees or the court costs or anything like that. No child support. Of course, naturally, John, that's my baby Spencer's dad, he's wanting more money. So they're trying to pursue me for child support on top of getting child support to us from a set amount of benefits that they cannot alter.
Now here's the thing, dude. Does the biological father, does he have a job, like an actual paycheck job?
No.
Does he get any money from government?
He finally, after he sought me, I didn't seek him for child support for, my son was 3 years old before John stepped in and decided he wanted to see his son. Only because because his sister pursued it.
What the hell does this guy do? What does he do to eat 3 meals a day and put a roof over it? What's he doing?
He lives off of advance, and he gets Social Security, SSI now.
Why? What? Has he got an eye ache or does his elbow hurt? What the hell? What is it? How does he get SSI?
Well, because he's never showed me any actual physical documents. The only thing I've ever seen him do is get a couple of doctor's appointments for his back. So I guess he's got a back issue. And we were together 2 years.
Really? How do you do this? I'd like to know how to do this. How do you do this?
Yeah, I'd like to know too. I mean,
who are these people?
I was told when I worked since I was 12 till I was 23 years old, straight nonstop. I mean, even between jobs, I had another job before I quit another.
Right. I've always been that way, and it's only because of this current economic situation. I'm unemployed. And my unemployment benefits ran out, and I've been scrambling to get a job. There was a time years ago. You just said you're 41. I'm 50. There was a time years ago you couldn't swing a cat without hitting a help wanted sign. I mean, now it's practically impossible. I mean, I've got a huge resume, and I'm either there's 20 or 30 people ahead of me or behind me applying for the same job, or even just a crappy job, just bagging groceries or something. I'm overqualified. But your biological, your ex-husband or whatever his status is, this guy gets SSI because I've got a bad back. Yet I'm sure he's probably perfectly able to wash the car and mow the lawn.
Well, when we lived together, he was just fine cutting wood with a hatchet.
Yeah, he's perfectly ambulatory.
Without cutting them down. So I guess with his bad back, he was still able to haul 200-pound logs. I couldn't do it, and I don't even have a bad back.
Unbelievable. So when's your next court date? What's going on with that? Is there another court date?
Well, on the 21st, I get to go to court because there was an officer who was assaulting my daughter, and since I have no contact, and honestly, in January of 2013, I submitted a police report against him for attempting to physically assault me in the court hallway. It got swept under the carpet. Then, on February 5th, this past February, he was manhandling my daughter in the court parking lot, so I was recording it. Since I don't have physical contact with my daughter, I couldn't talk to her. I could just follow them. So I recorded, and out of the blue came this dude in dark, yelling, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm her mother." And he starts grabbing at my daughter. Well, they basically plowed manhandling ball players, manhandling my daughter, and he grabbed my phone, pushed me, tried to break my phone. I was later arrested that night, and she's now incarcerated also.
Do you still have some of these recordings?
They have my phone, but yeah, I have that recording. I posted it on my Facebook. It's public, and I got it up, coincidentally, about an hour before they come and arrested me that night. And they took my phone that night, and they sought the warrant the next day.
Right. If you have some of these recordings, I want you to find them on your Facebook page and send them to me in a message. Send me the link in a message, and can I post them on my page? Can I do that? Do I have?
Absolutely. This one is something I believe should be public because of the fact that I was arrested without a warrant. They said they had a warrant.
Yeah. Right. Sure they did.
They produced it. They did threaten to hit my friend Tammy with the flashlight, told her to shut the fuck up. And we have no right. She had no right as the property owner to ask for a warrant that night. I was arrested the day I got out of jail from that because the CPS worker that is saying that my daughter was cutting and such, she's still involved. She made a claim that I threatened her and my mother at court. So I was re-arrested the same night I got out of jail.
This is just insane.
To tie in some of the conspiracy, the RICO.
Well, this is it. It's, people say we're crazy. They say we're crazy.
State trooper, so he extended me the long arm of Michigan. Thank you. Thank you, Trooper Jamie Bullied.
Yeah, really. I was going to say, who are some of the main players in this? Are you allowed to give names? Because usually
I am. Nobody's gagged me.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's usually a gag order, and part of the reason, folks who are watching this video, part of the reason why they throw gag orders on is because everything that Danette has just been talking about here on the show, they don't want out. They don't want people to know this or to see this, but this is standard operating procedure for not only DCF, that's what we call it here in Massachusetts, Child Protective Services, police, and we've been covering the whole police state thing on the Meat and Potato Show. Everybody knows about it, and this is the reason why they throw gag orders. But yeah, if you can, yeah, who's the judge that you're most likely going to go up in front of on this next court date?
With the police officer, it'll be Chief Judge Jenner, and he is the one who denied my 3 recusal for the CPS Judge Foley.
Is that Jenner as in Jenner as in?
It's Jenner. It's weird. Yenoir, or maybe IOR.
That's okay. That's all right. I can look them up.
Judge Jenner, Alan Jenner.
Go ahead.
And also Chief Judge Bergeron may also step in. He's also been a sit-in judge for Judge Foley for my CPS cases. He granted me 10 minutes a week with my kids.
Wow, 10 minutes a week, wow.
Back in February, he granted me 10 minutes a week with my kids. The following week, Judge Foley revoked it. Because he was a little puzzled why they're trying to reunite us through a no-contact order and jail. And since he's not familiar with the case, he couldn't help but offer me at least some time with my children. He was supervised. But the following week, Judge Foley revoked it because she didn't feel it was healthy for my children. I mean, I did object to her ex parte communications and depriving my children. And because I'm disabled, that makes me mental.
What is your disability?
I have post-traumatic stress disorder, chronic anxiety, and naturally with that comes some depression.
Right.
And I'm agoraphobic, severely agoraphobic, since my children's dad beat me to a bloody pulp.
Right. Is this and it's all stemmed from your life of abuse, exactly. And because you had children, well, this brings me back to my very first question. Once you're in the system, you're always in the system. And because of your specific situation, you were abused as a child. Obviously, you were abused in your relationship or your relationships.
I was a battered daughter and a battered sister.
Right.
20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Because of this, now you've gone and had children, and they're always going to be in the system. And here's the sad thing, Danette, and you already know this. Your children are going to grow up, probably eventually have children of their own. Their children are going to be raked in by the system. It's unbelievable. It's really... So, all right, so you've got your court date coming up.
The day after that is the day that they're seeking to terminate my parental rights. So the twice conference, to go to a status conference for them to decide if they've got enough evidence to pursue the charges of assault against the officer for me being pushed by him.
Right.
And the next day, I get to go, and Judge Foley is going to attempt to terminate my parental rights because I can't afford to get uptown.
You can't afford to get where?
I can't. Well, they've taken more than half my income, so I can't. I've also since lost my home, and I had some friends rob me of every penny I had, plus drive my car into the ground while I was in jail, and evict me from her home over the summer. That was in August. And it hasn't been easy. I do have extraordinarily supportive friends, thank God. I feel very blessed for that.
But here's the situation. The state has driven you to this point. Your mother has driven you to this point.
They told me that they are trying to make me crazy because I do get inflamed quickly. That is part of my disability. I'm impulsive. I get it.
Right.
And
but this is all being caused by other people.
I go once I approach ignorance and it's in my face, I kind of flip. And when I see ignorance, and I don't really give a shit that it's a judge.
Sure.
She's breaking the law, and she's utilizing her abuse her authority
Mm-hmm.
to harm my family. I'm not that mom that's going to put her tail between her legs. I will not. And I don't care if it puts me in jail. I will not go in there and listen to ignorance when I know it's wrong.
Well, of course, and here's part of the game plan that they do. They want, they'll look at you and they'll say, well, she's got what they call a defiance disorder. It's not a defiance disorder. You're wrong, and you're breaking the law, and you're not giving me my fair due. And
This
never mind.
takes me back to that very first hearing, actually. The very first hearing, I put these people on the stand, including the worker who brought the officer to my door and put the gun in my face. And I asked him, have I ever asked you for a warrant? He said, yes, every time. See, his very first initial meeting with me, this guy was my legal advocate when John stuck a hatchet in my head from Shelter Incorporated. He is now a CPS worker. He's the one that sought the removal of my children. My own legal advocate from a couple years earlier. At any rate, he told me I was going to do this the hard way. Right from the get-go.
Jesus.
And then he testified that I'd asked him for a warrant every time. And you know what the judge told me? There was no violation of my Fourth Amendment rights. You have no rights. The Fourth Amendment doesn't exist to you. I said, excuse me? I'm going to take my children, and it's pissing me off. He's like, you have every right to be upset, ma'am. And then totally changed everything from then on, and I've been the bad guy.
Yeah, because you stood up for your rights. That's unbelievable. And because you've been fighting.
I've been jailed twice for deprivation of rights for confronting her on it. The second time, okay, I deserved it. I called her a fraud on the record. Probably not a good idea. But I also called her a fraud in the hallway a few moments before that on my own recording.
Well, these
that
are
was recorded too.
They are frauds. They are frauds.
Well, they don't like being confronted with it. So
No, they don't. They
28
don't.
of 40 days in jail for that. The day I got evicted, I was allowed to finally contact my attorney after 3 weeks. And I actually used the police report that I submitted in January of 2013 against the undersheriff in order to place that phone call to my attorney to inform him I was in jail.
Mm-hmm.
They had me in solitary confinement for 2 weeks. Over it.
I want you to keep in touch with me. And after your next court date, and possibly the termination of your parental rights, I want you to get back in touch with me, the way we've been talking. And because I want you to come back on the show again to give me an update of that. We could probably do something in June. And this is unbelievable. Everything that I've been talking about, from what I've been writing in my blog, what I've been doing here on the show, everything that Matthew Virgin has been talking about is this is evil. It's not just that we're dealing with a system that is corrupt and is self-serving. A prudent person, let's say you're a greedy person. A prudent person, even though they're greedy, at some point in time in their conscience says, wait a minute, this is wrong. We can't be doing this. I can't be doing this anymore. No, these people do it day after day after day after day. At some point in time, pure evil just becomes pure evil. And this is what we're dealing with here. The people that have surrounded you and are indicting you and accusing you, they're not just, well, we're just upholding the law and looking out for the children. No, these people are evil. These people are just pure evil. Danette, I've only got a couple of more minutes here. Thank you for coming on to the show. I'm going to post up the stuff on the, once the interview is done and I get to put it up on YouTube and stuff. Can I give people your Facebook way to get hold of you, or any way to get hold of you? And do you want to give...
You're welcome to find me through the public post site. I keep a lot of my private stuff amongst my close friends, because I am
Sure.
still human. But I do advocate publicly off my own name. I'm not afraid.
Sure.
They don't scare me like they want to. They piss me off, but they don't scare me.
Right. Well,
I don't have a better way to explain it. I'm a survivor.
No,
In
right.
my opinion, a survivor is probably one of the most dangerous people you're going to encounter.
Let me tell you something, because here's the thing. Here's where you are in. You are quite literally between a rock and a hard place. And I'm going to say something, and please don't take it the wrong way. This you could actually use as a strength. Now, don't take this the wrong way. You're going to lose. And because you're going to lose, you actually now have nothing left to lose. Because they're
already in my head.
Yeah.
I have nothing left to lose.
Right.
What are they going to do to stop me now?
Exactly. So you see what I'm trying to say. You might actually gain more strength once after. Well, I think you said the 21st. Once you go into that and the possibility of termination of your rights as a parent, you now. Well, you've just terminated my rights as a parent. So now I have nothing to lose. Now I'm just going to go out and I'm going to speak out about this. And you probably should. You should probably target these people and publicly put their faces.
I'm supposed to make a couple of appearances on Silent Voices.
Good.
And truly it is a matter of the lack of means that I'm experiencing due to all this. The only thing stopping me from showing up on Silent Voices because they're going to be very happy with. Well, I got about 4,000 documents that can connect dots.
Man, unbelievable. Danette, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. And
It's my pleasure, and I'll be happy to come back. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate exposure. This was my first public exposure, and I intend to make it not my last.
Oh, definitely. On this show, it'll definitely not. This is just the first of many. We'll follow this case. And again, we're going to talk to Matt Virgin again on the show. There's more to come on my show about all of this. And yes, please send me the video, some of your other information that you have. Send me any links you got. And you've got an advocate here working for you. So, Danette.
And I still follow your absolute power, Christopher. I just admire your stories. You've done an excellent job with your expose, by the way.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
My information came from it, so.
Good for you. Good for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Danette Kingstad calling in from Michigan. Danette, thank you so much. Christopher Mader, The Meat and Potato Show, Conservative Talk, and Awesome Rock.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Isn't that horrible? Isn't that something else? You know, the more she talked, you know, I've read a bunch of her emails. I've been following her stuff on Facebook. And I thought, I got to admit to you, actually, Danette, you know, I've written down the outline, how I'm going to do this, but as you started talking, it was a little confusing trying to follow the timeline, but that's not your fault. It's their fault. They have purposely constructed this tangled web, and it's like a rule within a rule, a law within a law, and this is what they do. This is what CPS does. And what's ended up happening to Danette is she's quite literally being driven crazy by this. She's quite literally being driven crazy by this. Her children are quite literally being driven crazy by this. This is all the state's fault. She told earlier about her children were fine. Things were fine until they got into this, until all of this started happening. And now, because all of this is happening to them, they're saying, well, look, this is a result of the abuse they suffered under their mother's care. Excuse me? All this started after the children were under your care, the state's care. But of course the state won't, they'll take no responsibility for this. This is all part of the game. And this brings me back to what I said about this being pure evil. A prudent person, even if you're a greedy person, even if you're a bad person, at some point in time, there's something that goes off in the back of your head that says, wait a minute, this is wrong. I can't be doing this. I can't be part of this. This is wrong. You know, even if you have to do it and follow your job and follow, there's something in the back of your mind that says, this is wrong. I can't be doing this. That's not what's happening with these people. These people are pure evil. These people do this day in and day out to hundreds, if not thousands of families. This woman calls in from Michigan. You just heard her story. I talked about Matthew Virgin and all the different shows that he goes on. And if you listen to any of his broadcasts, and I post them all up on the Meat and Potatoes page, he talks about the same thing. And he has people calling in all the time, telling their individual stories. These aren't isolated incidences, folks. These things go on all the time. It's one of the things I've said on not only my blog pages, but on my Facebook page. At one point in time, we could have said it's an isolated incident. This isn't what happens. This is an aberrant. This is something that has happened. This isn't what normally goes on. Today, this is what goes on. And the isolated incident is the person who's doing the right thing, is the social worker who's saying, you know what, we're not going to pursue this case. You know, we've screwed this family over. You know, this is our fault. We can't be doing this. That's the isolated incident. What happens every single day in every single state, in every single county, in virtually every single city and town is what you just heard. It happens all the time. It's happening to me. It's happening to Demergen. It's happening to Danette. It's happening to all the guests that have been on Matthew's show. Danette just said she's got 4,000 documents. There's probably people in the courthouse that are waiting their turn to get screwed over by CPS. They've got the same story. And I think we've gotten to a certain point in time, because some people will say, well, you know, there are children out there being abused. Yes, there are. You just heard Danette's story. She was abused as a child. She's got her mother, she's 400 pounds, and she's a psycho. And she's abusing her children. These children are being abused. Yes, there are. Where's CPS on that? Where are they? And I'll tell you where they are. They don't care about that. They don't care about that because those are a dime a dozen. They can grab those children at any time and take them away and get their $4,000 from the federal government. This is where the pure evil comes in. They want to suck everybody into the system. Eventually, at some point in time here in America, you are going to see a point in time where virtually every single family who has a child is going to be under some sort of CPS observation or some sort of care. You watch, you mark my words. A law will be passed at some point in time down the road where this becomes mandatory for every single family. Everyone having a child. Doesn't matter what economic situation you are. It doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. It doesn't matter who you are. You get pregnant and have a child, you will be automatically assigned a case number. Automatically assigned. You mark my words. You mark my words, this will come. Danette, thank you again for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Mader, The Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk, and awesome rock. What an interview.